And now we will be having a panel discussion, a vibrant one, let me say. It's all about leveraging data for efficiencies and flexibility. The moderator of the panel discussion will be Mr. Subhajit Roy, founder, editor, Mojo for Industry. And our panelists are Mr. Harsh Gupta, Global Head, Information Technology Business, Alphion India Private Limited, Mr. Vikram Kumar Venkat, Senior Vice President, CtrlS Datacenters Limited, Mr. Amit K. Gupta, Head Business and Policy for India, SEA and Africa, Secure Meters, Mr. Kavinder Kohli, Vice President, Customer Success, Kimbal Technologies, Ms. Meenakshi Kumar, Managing Director, Utilities Industry Lead, Accenture Technology, India. While we are setting the stage for the panel discussion, ladies and gentlemen, let me take you through their biographies. Our moderator, sir, after an illustrious career, Mr. Subhajit Roy, in the Indian Navy, he transitioned into the world of technology and business journalism in 2008. In 2020, Subhajit launched his own venture, Mojo for Industry, which stands as India's first audio-visual content platform for the industry. Under his leadership, Mojo for Industry quickly gained acceptance and became a trusted source of information for various industries. Subhajit's expertise and contributions to the field have been widely recognized. He has been acknowledged as a top content development voice by LinkedIn and was honored with the Indian Achievers Award. Mr. Harsh Gupta, business leader AI, 5G, chip, information technology, ex-Qualcomm, Lucent. 15 plus years of mobile wireless experience, networks in terms of business development, sales, pre-sales, contract negotiations, market research and analysis, prime responsibility of driving Qualcomm chipset, devices sales through local distributors and private brands. Specialities are in strong relationships with China, Taiwan, Korea, build and support India's OEMs ecosystem, and many, many more. Mr. Vikram Kumar Venkat. Mr. Vikram Kumar comes with over 29 years of experience in sales and business development in IT industry. He at present leads the public sector business and government relations for CtrlS Group. He is responsible for driving the government initiatives across group and enabling the digital transformation journey for the key customers. Mr. Amit K. Gupta is Head Business and Policy for India, SEA and Africa at Secure Meters. He started his career at Secure over 2 decades as product manager for developing prepayment metering systems and was instrumental in launching the prepaid systems for India, Bangladesh, Ghana and AMI projects in Singapore and Malaysia. Mr. Kavinder Kohli is the Vice President of Customer Success at Kimbal Technologies, recognized for his expertise in energy automation and digital transformation across distribution utilities nationwide. An IIM Kozhikode alumnus, he has 20 plus years of experience in managing complex projects across smart metering, smart grid, substation automation, demand response, SCADA, ADMS, and energy efficiency, consistently delivering innovative and sustainable solutions. Kavinder is a visionary leader and a mentor with an unwavering commitment to delivery and excellence. Ms. Meenakshi Kumar, she is the Director and Lead for Utilities Practice in Accenture Technology, India. She has over 19 years of experience and strategic program management, process consulting and digital transformation. She excels as a domain and process excellence expert having worked with Generation T&D and retail clients on technology strategy and roadmap, process blueprint and architecture, capability assessment and digital transformation projects. Mr. Viraj K. Pathi, founder and CEO, Adya Smart Metering. Can we now invite our moderator and all the panelists on the stage? Moderator, Mr. Subhajit Roy, founder editor, Mojo 4 Industry. Mr. Harsh Gupta, global head, information technology business, Alphion India Private Limited. Mr. Vikram Kumar Venkat, Senior Vice President, CtrlS Datacenters Limited. Mr. Amit K. Gupta, Head Business and Policy for India, SEA and Africa, Secure Meters. Mr. Kavinder Singh Kohli, Vice President, Customer Success, Kimbal Technologies. Ms. Meenakshi Kumar, Managing Director, Utility Industries Lead, Accenture Technology India. Mr. Vijay Kumar Pathi, CEO, Adya Smart Metering. A warm welcome to all of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, good afternoon, and thank you so much, Aayera, for giving up this giving this opportunity to discuss on a very, very crucial topic, and of course, after 30 minutes of after post lunch. So, thank you once again. So, if we talk about India's evolving energy sector, smart metering is emerging as a game changer in optimizing electricity management. Smart electrical meters provide real-time data that allows utilities to better monitor, manage, and respond to electricity usage patterns. But this technology not only ensures accurate billing and reduces operational cost, it also enables advanced features such as demand response and grid optimization. For consumers, it offers greater transparency and control over their energy consumption, leading to potential cost savings and more informed decision making. However, the future of smart meters hinges on our ability to optimize the data they generate. In today's scenario, despite their advancements, a lot of the data collected by smart meters remains untapped. So in this session, we will delve into how data-driven insights are transforming the energy landscape. We will try to understand how leveraging smart metering technology can lead to more efficient operations, improved grid management, and of course, enhanced flexibility in India's energy infrastructure. So let's start the discussion with the opening remarks on how data is reshaping the energy infrastructure landscape. If I can start from my left, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we have been listening from the morning, like every speaker after speaker is talking about how data is going to actually need to be used or utilized to make that impact. Last year when in this session we were talking how to deploy the smart meters, how do we make it a faster and progress. Today we have come to the next stage after a year on looking at what we can do with this data. I think it's a great progress that we are having. So if I look at smart metering data, not only from the smart meters, the data today, if you look at it only on the consumer side is one. Actually, we are putting the meters even on MV feeders to the DTs, and then we are collecting the data from all the possible points. At the same time, the essential part of the utilities that we are doing is, we are doing a lot of consumer indexing. This also came up in the morning, and then GIS mapping of that consumer indexing. And at the same time, if you look at it, we also picking up a lot of IoT sensor data from either field circuit breakers or other information. Now with plenty of data that is landing up into the utilities or providers like us where the data is coming and residing. But really today if I look at it, the data is being really used only for one most important thing, that is the revenue management and then billing. But as we progress, as we look at time of the day billing and all that, and additional, when we map GIS mapping, consumer indexing and look at it, actually we can move to the next stage of looking at how this data can be help us to do power reliability improvement, power outage management, quality improvement of power supply and load forecasting for the time of the day, or how do we do right energy management and all that. So looking at all this, there's a vast scope and potential for us to leverage this data.
Thank you, Vikram. So, Meenakshi, if you can.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. So just to add to what you mentioned, am I audible? Yeah. So I think if we look at, the entire value chain and, starting from, say, generation, transmission, distribution, the data that we talk about there is, right, more from the asset side, telling you what is the health of the assets, whether you're able to manage and monitor those. So that data which is coming from the asset plus linking it to the connected workers, the people on the ground who are, managing and monitoring our instruments and assets. So till that point, we, talk about data more from an asset health side. As we move downstreams, it is more about, the data which is coming from the customer side. And that's where the entire discussion today on the smart metering side, where we get to understand what is the energy usage, what are the energy usage patterns of the customers, different demand, and how we need to respond to those demand. So I think across the value chain, yes, the data is playing a important part. At the same time, I think what is going to be the next generation of data intelligence is how we can connect this data, right, which is flowing right from the generation to your distribution systems and the end customer. So I think as we have already been discussing since morning, there's a lot that still needs to be done to, add a lot of analytics on top of the data that we have across the value chain.
Right. Mr. Kohli.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll add on to the points which my other panelists have started with. I'll not repeat them. So we started the journey with capturing data from generation to transmission to distribution. We added automation solutions. We added up data centers and control centers. One thing which I think is the next stage would be, before we get into analytics, is actually layering that data, intermingling, talking to each other, the data which is coming from assets or customers or from machines. We are having a lot of capture points. We are having the data as of now in multiple silos. They need to layer with each other, talk to each other, and then bring in meaningful information.
So it's about bringing more intelligence.
Yeah, more intelligence. But before intelligence, layer it out.
Right.
Yeah, map one on top of other.
Right.
Thanks, Kavinder. Good afternoon, everyone. I think we are talking about the key point, the value creation out of the data, which is lying all across the IoT devices, which is nothing but a smart meter. See, I look at this industry very closely to what automotive industry is doing, actually. We talk about the connected cars, right? The amount of data fetching which the auto OEMs are doing at the end of, for them, actually, and the value creation they are able to do in terms of revenue generation for an OEM. Those pieces, I think we are yet to see in the coming years, especially happening for the OEMs as well as the utility. And that creation will happen only and only when we start bringing in the predictive maintenance or the predictive analytics, which needs to happen over the time. I think we are still at the start of the journey in terms of smart meter deployment. We will see those days coming very soon, and the value creation on the data will start happening. The humongous amount of IoT devices which will be having within the home, I think that not only one smart meter will be able to fetch the data, we'll be having a lot of data creation, especially from those IoT devices also, and those all will be interlinked. And that's where the value creation in terms of revenue generation may start happening for the OEMs. I think the utility, they look at how the revenue improvement is happening for them, but the ecosystem partners, even the OEMs or the operators, they're also looking at, like, is there any possible revenue generation possible for them also? So we see those things happening in the coming days, and yeah, the journey has just started, actually.
So it's win-win for all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good afternoon. I started my career with metering, and I had a very interesting phase seeing electromechanical meters where we were using this data on a monthly basis to do billing. From there, in 2006, we had this national policy where it was mandated to have electronic metering. And now we're talking about the smart metering, right? So in between, we had prepaid as well. And I've seen the evolution of data happening across different geographies, whether it is Europe, Middle East, Asia, Africa, and Australia. And one thing, I think I just agree with all the panelists out here. So one thing which is very interesting is like, if you look at what was being done earlier, maybe a decade before, even few years before, was like we were just using 1 kilowatt hour data, which was a monthly data, to bill customers. That was the only use case we had. But if you look at the capability of the smart meters across geographies, now with electronic metering coming in place, you have 30 minutes interval data, you can have 15 minutes interval data, you can have as low as 5 minutes interval data for countries like Australia, where they're having similar sort of a use case. And if you look at the interesting part, if I just take say 15 minutes of interval data, in per day with 24 hours, you have nearly 96 data points. So that's nearly averaged out to 100. In a month where you were just getting 1 data points for billing, today you can get 3,000 data points for billing, right? Apart from billing. So you have events, you have billing data, you have instantaneous data, you have load survey data, you have tamper data. There's humongous amount of data. My only suggestion to industry, because I've been trying to pursue this with a lot of my customers, and have seen a lot of private customers like BACS, CSC, Singapore, Malaysia, making good use of data by really trying to harness the capability of data, either to look at the tamper analysis part, to look at the demand forecasting part, and they have been doing it effectively. Unfortunately in India, like for many, many years, this has been one of my unfortunate pain points, that a smart meter, or basically an electronic meter, can give you so much of insightful data. Please use it, please use it, please use it. I would just say, just have some sort of a workshop. I'm willing, our organization is willing. Let's sit together, let us find out what could be the multiple use cases, what could be the fill scenarios where we could leverage data. And there are so many companies, I look at the case studies of Japan, where the government has allowed the data to be handed over to private parties to create something innovative, to really leverage the data, to make some sense out of the data. So it's not like building so many data centers, building so many control centers, network operating centers, smart metering centers, unfortunately, but you're just collecting data. We're doing nothing about the data. So my urge, I would just say as an opening note, please use the data, and let's have a workshop where we can discuss the nuances of how we can really leverage data to help not only the end customers, all the stakeholders, whether it utility, whether it is the government, whether it is other stakeholders in the ecosystem, everybody will be beneficial. Thank you.
Right. Yeah.
Hi, afternoon to all of you. Viraj here from Adya Smart Meters. So I come from a background from R&D, productization, and spent last 25 years in this, multiple countries. For me, when I talk about the data, the first thing is the data coming correctly? The data quality and the data governance is what I see is the first major step to correct it. And then comes leveraging of the data. So a lot of deployments in the real time from a very little exposure compared to all these stalwarts sitting here is the quality of the data which comes in the true. Is that rollouts which are happening, are they correct? Second, the stakeholders are the AMISPs, the utilities, and the policymakers or the NSGMs, etc., which are doing it. Are the AMISPs actually able to understand the data which is coming from it? Do they have the knowledge to interpret? So the data has to be interpreted in a way for them where they understand what is the financial implications, what's going on for them on that. That has to be done. I mean, forget harnessing the data, and that's the second step for me. The second, even at the utilities level, most of the utilities level, is one, the SLAs are being written on this. How are the SLAs actually happening in relation to the ground realities on that? And third is where the policy decisions are happening, the interpretations are happening. These three have to be on the same page for them to really make sense out of this happening. What is in it for coming to the harnessing of the data? Yes, there is so much of data that can be harnessed. There is terabytes of data. Wherever I go, this is what's the data available. There's terabytes of data, whether it's in India, US, anywhere, terabytes of data which is coming. It's what is exactly is needed out of it. How do you make sense out of it on that? There is AI, ML, predictive, it's great. The security of the data is another big issue. how I see is educating the utilities to say, when the data is coming out from the smart meters, I go to a customer and says, it's a win-win situation there. You're not just saying that we are going to use this for billing, but how actually you can take this data wherever the deployment's happening. Let's say there's 1 million customers which is being rolled out. There is a mix of residential, industries, commercial. How do you take the data? Go to them. Let's say I was doing a small pilot system study for a palm oil industry, where there is a preventive maintenance where they were losing about 3 to 4 crores per annum just because of the power machines. I mean, how do you leverage this data using the smart meters and the smart metering data and other data, and how do you improvise this? So there is a revenue sharing model which can be created out between the data who is leveraging the data and the utilities, and it can go further. So there's a long way, and hope we can utilize, leverage this data for all the stakeholders and improvise this ongoing rollouts in a much better way. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Viraj. Vikram, so Viraj has raised a couple of very, very important questions, or rather serious concerns. How we can harness the quality data and use it effectively? Can you just talk about some of the strategies?
Yeah. So if I look at it, as all the other panelists have mentioned, now we are bringing data, now the quality of the data has to be checked, the outliers to be identified, and then also bring in the real applications, actually the utility core applications into picture to really bring the data as an enabler to deliver what we are looking at to improve the sustainability of the utilities. Now to do all this is where digital infrastructure and a networks that come into place, and that is where really where what we bring in on the table. As one of the largest data center provider in the country, how do we bring in is the most important part. And at the same time, as we talked about a lot of IoT devices and all coming in, how do we take all this data to the remote places, not only the connectivity but processing at the edge. This is where I think the rest of the industry, like the data center players, should step in to have edge data centers and also to provide the sufficient bandwidths or the network connectivity to enable so that we leverage all this at the scale. At the same time also providing cyber security and all that, because what is important as you go to the time of the day, you really can map what an individual household is going through in a day. In the morning the high performance power appliances are switched on, you will get to know because the consumption pattern changes. So all this keeping in mind, and at the same time Government of India looking at power utilities and the infrastructure as a national critical infrastructure, that is where I think a lot of the Indian CSP should step in to enable this to go through.
End of the day, your revenue matters. So, yeah. Meenakshi, if you can talk about that, how utilities can leverage the data to improve their revenues?
Okay. So I think one basic thing that we all know with this whole smart metering, we are able to get the view of the customer usage, able to bill the customer appropriately, remove the inefficiencies which were there in terms of low billing efficiency. So the first thing is, which I think the whole objective around this whole smart metering initiative is going on, is that we can fill that revenue loss which is coming in because of the low billing efficiencies which have been there. So I think that's the basic crux of it. But beyond that, and I think as a lot of us have been talking about that, the idea is to use this data beyond the core of just utilizing it for the right billing, which is, so you can do a lot with this data. So one is, and while working with a lot of global customers, we see that there are a lot of cross-sell opportunities for the utilities, right? Beyond the commodity as electricity that we are selling, we should be able to create those different new revenue streams to cross-sell, upsell new products. With the whole solar revolution coming in, with a lot of other storage devices, EVs getting integrated into the systems. So there are a lot of new services that can be packaged with the core utility commodity services that we are giving. So that's a huge revenue opportunity which I think is out there when we move beyond this basics of implementing the smart metering programs across the different discoms that we see. So yeah, that's a lot revenue out there for us to capture.
Wonderful. Mr. Kohli, how this real-time data is, Meenakshi was saying that how, it can help in identifying and addressing the inefficiencies what we see.
Before I touch on the real-time data, I just want to add to his point.
Okay.
So when we're talking about data coming in multiple intervals, let's say we have data at 15-minute interval, we can get it at 1 hour interval, 30 minutes interval, and sea of data would come. One thing which I have observed, there are multiple schemes as of now to fetch data. Some of them, some data points are at DT level, some at feeder level, then consumer level. And there's no uniformity in those packages and programs. So one thing which I think can come up, the first thing which can come up as a policy, maybe at a state level or a discom level, is to have a uniform way of fetching data. And then once you have that data, then you can have multiple use cases to that. So as of now, if in one package within the same discom, in one AMISP is getting data at 15 minutes interval and second one is getting at 30 minutes interval due to their RFP clauses, and to maintain that SLA, they would stick to that. Putting in more intervals would mean more cost to it in terms of infra, and they would not wish to go that route. So that uniformity would help. So at the policy level or at the discom level. Okay, now answering the real-time thing. So, yeah, we can fetch data in multiple ways. We have been having data in the previous era wherein we had electronic meter and then digital meter. Data was always there. Why do we need it real time? When you look at the data being synchronized with multiple use cases, you can look at the test case of real time in multiple I would say lenses. So you look at AMISPs. Why do they need real-time data? AMISPs have to meet their SLAs. AMISP have to ensure that their contracts are met. So they would require real-time data for proactive actions. They would have to go onto the field, do the operations and maintenance. So their real-time data is required. Second thing is that if you look at from the lens of consumer, they would also wish to have real-time data if they have to look at their appliances, their consumption patterns, if they have to look at how much energy is being consumed, if they are participating in demand response, then they can again require real-time data. From a lens of utility, if they have to look at preventive maintenance, if they have to look at, let's say, demand forecast or load forecast, if they have to look at the use case of real-time data being given for the policy advocacy. So they also require real-time data. So with those use cases, real-time data makes sense.
Right. So Amit, you were traveled a lot. You have set up projects in overseas as well. So if you can just share some of the case studies exactly where smart metering has helped to increase efficiencies and all this stuff.
I think many of them. If I start from my early days in the career, early in 2000, so we did one project for Northern Ireland where we have close to 1 million smart metering points. And if you look at what are the main operational efficiency parameters that you measure? One would be metering, billing, collection. I would say the most simplest of things. So for metering, there was a reduction of meter reading cost by 75%. For billing, there was a reduction of 50%. For debt management and collection, it was a reduction of 45%. And if I look at the overall call center costs, it reduced by 14%. That's for Northern Ireland. If I go further in my career, in 2006, we were doing one project for West Bengal in Newtown area of Calcutta. There, just in a common area, which was the lift for an apartment, the monthly consumption was close to 17,000 units. And with smart metering data, it was like reduced to nearly 50%. So that was a sort of reduction. If you go further, in Bangladesh, we were doing one project in Chittagong area. And we ran the project for 15 years as a technology provider. There, the overall demand, the maximum demand was reduced by 50% in the feeders, and like the availability of power increased substantially. If you look at Manipur, you had like nearly 18 hours access of electricity because people were willing to pay in time. So the metering was more or less 100%, billing was 100%, collection was 100%. If you're using prepayment, obviously these three operational parameters automatically gets into a 100% range. If you look at other parts in Asia or say Singapore, Malaysia, smart metering data has really helped them to empower the customers in terms of giving them all the required insights in terms of managing their energy usage in an appropriate manner. If you look at Australia, it has helped them to reduce their peak load overall management. So they don't need to add additional generators to manage that load. So they can curtail the load or they can incentivize customers to really manage it. So from operational efficiency, one of the recent projects that we're doing in Bihar, so there also if you look at, in the over 1.5 million meters we have installed in over nearly 16 months now, one of the fastest million meters installed on the wall. And if you look at there, we have been able to collect nearly 7 billion or 700 crores of revenue for the utility, out of which 30% is against the debt collection. So that's amazing. If you imagine for a state like Bihar, where getting revenue in time is challenging, if you can get it, like, and giving that customer the empowerment to buy electricity on a daily basis or a weekly basis, it has really become a game changer for everybody. So I say for the operational parameters, there are umpteen number of examples which I can give you, but these are few of them which really makes a lot of impact in terms of how data can really help utilities as well as end customers, policymakers, and everybody out there. Yeah, thank you.
Great to hear those success stories as well as positive stories what smart metering is making today. But if I have to give some stats again, in India, the average billing efficiency is 83%, indicating that 17% of electricity is not billed, resulting in significant revenue losses. This unbilled electricity amounts to approximately 1 lakh crore. That is assuming a per unit cost of 5 rupees. So, Viraj, I will come to you. How can smart meters address the challenges of the current billing systems to improve efficiency and reduce these losses?
Just going back to the real-time data, we're talking some stats and figures I'll throw and then come to this. Very interesting. I was pitching for my startup which was an advanced energy platform which we're building. Is the outages notification, which is very crucial. If you don't get a real-time data there on it, the loss is just for India, which is officially, it's 5% of the GDP is a loss due to the power outages alone. So that's the significance of the real-time data. When we say real-time data, it could be 30 minutes, 1 hour, that doesn't matter, but getting the notifications. One of the things what I saw in my in a recent consulting engagement in Hyderabad in Canada, just the outage notifications not getting that real-time data was leading to fixing. When they were fixing this outage, every time it happened, it was their average loss was about $10 million on that. Similar to that, another interesting fact and figure is the power quality on that. The power quality which is there, I mean, which is one of the most neglected aspects in the power sector, that's close to about $110 billion just in India, and McKinsey report says it's about $180 to $200 billion. So the real-time data is literally the backbone of the power sector. Now, how does it impact the revenue? So just what we just thrown in a figure of Hydro One is a real-time data which doesn't come. That's a straight revenue loss in terms of the consumptions. The second is in terms of the efficiency of the economics of the country. That's an indirect loss which is much more massive than the loss to the utility itself. So the key, I mean, how do we change? Then I still go back to the quality of the data, what we are getting, the quality of the networks data. We need to start measuring the data at every value chain of the ecosystem, whether it is at the smart metering side, whether it is at the ADMS side, which is a feeder side, and unless we combine these two data points, where most of the utility across, the grids are not yet formed. The smart metering data is separate, the ADMS data is still separate, not yet integrated, not yet done. So what we are talking is still as a very initial stages of how the data can be managed, how data can be integrated and taken forward on that. So this is the real-time data is definitely the backbone, and the key for the success for improving the revenue is I still go back to the same comment saying that the quality of the data, what we are getting, to understand whether it is impacting. One of the most common errors what we see, most of the people who have been doing is, we are still getting a lot of billing errors on that. There is a spikes in the bills which are happening across many rollouts, whether it is in Malaysia, whether it is in US, whether it is in UK. One of the most common things, you just Google and see, is the billing errors, what they happen. So that, why I'm keep emphasizing is the quality of the data, what comes, is the backbone, and the real time and the quality will define lot of outcomes, what the use cases, what we are talking about harnessing, whether it is EV, whether it is microgrids, whether it is the load disaggregations inside the homes of, and how do we create these grids, the next generation, is the quality and the real time, how efficiently we can get is a key for success.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, right.
I just want to add to that. So, see, the spikes is a common thing even in India also. We are seeing this across many of our projects. But real-time data really helps in such a way that if I know on my mobile phone as a consumer that at this point of time, this many units are consumed, and I can correlate it with, let's say, at this point, this appliance was working. You know, it might be an issue with the appliance. Or without my knowledge, if my car was being charged at that time, right? So that spike can be correlated with either an unknown usage of an appliance, or maybe the appliance itself is faulty. Right. You know, so that can be linked to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, real time is, you know, what will come to rescue.
Both goes together.
As both of them were talking about the challenges as well as some of the solutions also, he said, now, can smart meters enable dynamic pricing and flexible energy use? If you can talk about that as well. Yeah.
Thanks. I think Viraj has been talking about the real-time data being the backbone of the whole AMI infra system actually. While real-time data functionality becomes critical to the whole system, it is a smart meter which is basically facilitating the whole structure. Bring the data from the consumer home back to the utility side, right? So the overall structure, if you look at the consumer usage, the behavior pattern, will come to know only and only when the smart meter is sitting at the center stage of the overall architecture. Now coming to the flexible pricing or the dynamic pricing we're talking about, right? This is all happening because of the real-time functionality, because the data is being fetched on a real-time basis, and we know what is the pattern, at what time of the day we have the peak load scenario of the off-peak load scenarios. That is where utility is creating a lot of value in terms of data analytics. With the amount of data which they're fetching, there's a lot of data analytics happening at the utility end. That's where they come out with this vibrant or dynamic pricing to ensure their grids are well taken care and they're well stable. They're not getting for blackout or the outages. So that is where the smart meter comes in, and then they offer the dynamic pricing, and that dynamic pricing basically enables the consumer in terms of a flexible usage also, because the consumer is well aware in terms of the usage that, okay, I'm going to use electricity in the morning from, let's say, 6 to 9, that's my peak hour. I want to shift my most of the load to the off-peak time actually. I will do it during the night time. So there is a flexibility which is being empowered to the consumer by having this flexible dynamic pricing. So that is where the whole system is working in to ensure this flexible pricing is available. Unfortunately, it is one or two utilities which is still moving forward in terms of this dynamic pricing from the traditional flat pricing, which is creating a lot of advantages, the benefits to the consumer in terms of the overall bills what consumer is getting end of the day. But I think we need more and more utility in the way it is happening on the global front. The more and more utility in India to move towards this whole TOD structure to ensure the consumer starts getting a benefit and they can flexibly use this whole energy category actually.
Right. Right. You can.
I have an interesting point to make. I mean, differential pricing is a must. I mean, there is absolutely the need of the hour. But very interestingly, I have a few personal experiences on that, where I subscribe in Texas. It's all the privatization and everything. The differential pricing is a norm, like in UK, in Texas, in California and all that. It has its own set of havoc it can create. We took an EV and subscribed for a contract, for a 3-year contract, which it says X, half the things what they say for a normal person, at least I come from some background where I understood. My neighbor also subscribed, have no understanding. The fuel bills used to be about $200, $300 per month, and EV is supposed to cut down, but rather it jumped the bills for them to $600 instead of $200. The only reason for that is the differential pricing. So differential pricing for there has to be a lot of education which needs to go to the consumers. It is very, very, very essential. Otherwise, in a country like India, if we do this differential pricing, and as there is talks about getting to the privatization, this is going to create havoc and even be the reason for the governments falling off. And I've seen this across many countries, how differential pricing has played a very difficult role for the consumers. For the utilities, it's fine. And then the tech behind it, how another thing which I would like to highlight with the differential pricing is in the prepaid. You combine the prepaid, add the differential pricing, add a net meters to it. That is the most potent difficulty that you're going to ever see trying to solve it. Yes, sir.
Point well taken. Thank you.
It has its own world actually.
Right. So we all know, no, smart meters, they're creating lots of data, and we all need quality data. So I would like to ask each one of you to talk about the preparedness of Indian industry, especially the energy sector, in terms of analyzing those data and use it effectively. So if you can start from left again.
So I think panelists were sharing a lot of data on the similar points. The fundamental point is how do we harness this data is most critical element. If we look at it, as I told you, this data actually enables us along with the other applications. And if we really look at how do we identify outliers, you can maybe integrate a smart meter, like in the morning we were talking about a meter for power, meter for water, meter for gas. You can easily make out if the gas consumption is very high, the number of people, power bills cannot be at the lowest of the points. So you really need to look at multiple segments of the data to identify and to come to a point of lot of this outlier analytics, not only on the consumer side, but even on the distribution side itself, depending, because you are getting data from feeder level, you are getting data at the transformer level, and then smart meter actually gives you the biggest advantage is you need not call the trouble call management system that we run in all utilities to 1912s you call. You need not really call, because as soon as the power goes, the central operation center will know that these customers are out of power or the data is not coming back within that 15-minute, 5-minute interval or real-time intervals. Then you can do a lot of analytics to identify where the circuit has broken or where it has gone wrong, or is it requires a predictive maintenance that you have a component failure, or how can you replace that component. So in this way, a lot of things that can be actually planned on the basis of the data that is coming in.
My question is towards preparedness of Indian industry. So if you can touch on that.
So yeah, I think in terms of preparedness, we are on the right path. I think that's evident from the fact that we have a lot of focus on smart meters, on data. So some key factors here. So when we talk about, say, data, right, we are talking about data definition, then data collection, and then data analysis, right? So I think we spoke about data quality. So the first step towards it is, are we putting the right input into defining the data structures, the data models? Are we utilizing the right platforms, to help us define that? And the second, I think, as per my experience of working in a lot of these SI implementations, so another is the talent part of it as well. So do we have the right set of data scientists? Do we have the right set of people who are able to, lay that foundation? Because yes, there's a lot of data, but is that quality data? Are we able to make sense out of it? So that due diligence and that effort has to be done, because we have seen a lot of projects running into those difficulties when the initial due diligence has not been done in terms of defining that data structures properly. So yeah, that's, I think, the important factor. Preparedness, yes, we are definitely. I think as India, we've always amazed our other countries in terms of our readiness in the digital revolution. I think we were, at the lunch, we were just talking about how, when our friends come from outside and they see how, digital payments we do so seamlessly. So definitely the volumes that we are talking about in India are so huge. But I think we have good record, and with the whole investment, the regulatory requirements, the government, interest, plus the public sector partnership that is coming in, we are definitely prepared. But yeah, we have to have that due diligence in place and, have more monitoring of such projects.
Right.
Yeah.
Kohli, sir. Right.
Thank you. So I'll break it up into a few parts, and I also would wish to add some experiences which we are facing. Like in Kimbal, that we are working in almost all the MISPs. As a solution provider, we are giving meters, all types of meters. We are giving head-end system. We are giving the COM, NB-IoT, RF, and cellular, everything. So we are there. So I'll break it up in this way, that one is the quality of data. So data is there. So every MISP, they start with the consumer indexing. They will start with, let's say, let's review what we need to do. And the data which we get from Discom as a first cut, it has a lot of duplicates, it has a lot of issues with the coordinates, data being spread in wrong geographies, all that stuff. So quality is one. So are we prepared for this as of now to bring that quality in? I think I'll add this point that there's a lot of effort which is required on the field to bring that quality. A lot of tools which are required on the field to maintain that quality. I think that preparedness is coming up, it's not yet there. That's the first thing. Second, once we get the data, so now we have to work on that data. And the first thing which we do, the MISPs will do is install meters and, rectify the mistakes or anomalies which we are having during consumer indexing. And we put in the meters. We are dependent on subcontractors. The MISPs are dependent on subcontractors. And again, it's capacity building of the subcontractors, or I would say sometimes shortcuts being adopted by the subcontractors. They would have their own ways of working. Even though we'll define some standard operating procedures, we'll define how to really work on the field, but they will do some shortcuts, and eventually what will happen, it will be difficult to saturate a substation or saturate a DT, and eventually it will lead to poor energy accounting. That's an end goal. Ultimately we have to account for the energy, and we have to ensure that, like all these, preventive maintenance or predictive maintenance or finding out anomalies, it all comes through that. So the first step would be that. So capacity building is missing, I would say. It is not up to the level. Are we prepared on that? Not yet. Okay. Then comes the next stage. Once we have, let's say, saturated 99% of the area, and we are, almost there. We have started building the data flows, started building the use cases of this data. Then comes the next stage is, storage. So what has happened in India, that we have a set of, a way of putting up in the clauses in the RFP, responding to that, and then, ultimately sizing up the data centers based on that. So when this storage comes, two things come into picture. One, sizing. I'm yet to see any project wherein the sizing is correct. Across this scheme, RDSS, the previous ones, RAPDRP, APDRP, all those, the sizing is an issue, and there the problem starts. That, how much to put on real-time basis, how much to give on the cloud, how much to do on-premise, how much to put on backup, and then once this sets in, then comes, shortcuts on the use cases. So
right.
Are we prepared on the sizes? We are going there.
So
We are on the way.
I know.
Yeah.
It's
So
work
with
in
that,
progress. We can say work in progress.
work in progress all across.
Right.
I'll give you one more use case. So we started with, let's say, call centers. 1912, he gave an example. Very nicely done. We have people managing that. From call center, we moved to SMOCs, right? Smart Metering Operation Control Centers, SMOCs. And now we are into NOMCs. So there is definitely progression. There is definitely, I can see improvement. But are we really utilizing those properly? We are again work in progress there.
Okay. Yes.
So in terms of our preparedness for on the smart metering, right? Yes, while we talk about the humongous amount of data which is lying all across and that just needs to be fetched. See, right now the data analytics which is being done by utilities, right now still the data is being fetched like I was hearing this morning, like sometimes utilities are doing it once a day or twice a day, right? That's still a limited data, right? While the data is, there's a huge amount of data, but as the frequency of the fetching increases and there are more and more IoT devices, they get integrated within the home, right? At that moment, the amount of data to be received at the utility end is going to increase. Right now, we are entirely dependent on, let's say, a technology like NB-IoT, or some places maybe we are integrating Cat1, right? But as more and more data, more and more devices, they start getting, attached to these smart meters, right? We would have the data which would not be manageable by the existing operators. So from the preparedness point of view, I think the service provider, we got to think about there is a very strong connectivity which is available to ensure the data is being fetched in the right manner and everything is received and there's nothing much getting lost. Maybe tomorrow, right? Today we are integrating Cat1 as a technology, or maybe Cat4. Tomorrow we may have to go to 5G. We never know about it, right? So that is where the preparedness will start coming in. So from the ecosystem perspective, right? We, as all the key stakeholders, like either it is a meter OEM, either it is a regulator, or let's say the service provider, AMISP, we all got to think together that how do we ensure that data which is being generated, that's rightly being received, and there's a 99.9% efficiency which is coming up. That's how the global utilities and the other organizations are behaving, and I'm sure we would follow the same path actually.
So I think in terms of the industry preparedness, this is a very interesting opportunity for all of us as providers of technology stack, right? But it's also a lot of responsibility for all of us. If starting from I believe two of them are the most important stakeholders in this preparedness from us as an industry. First is the consumer. So this is a technology. It's a very sophisticated, very powerful, very potent technology. If you can really let the customer engage in a very effective manner where he realizes the benefits of smart meters and the technology and the data that is created, it would be amazing. Let's say, for example, from the very start, if you design the meters which gives you information in terms of how much, it's a prepaid, right? So you can give him information how much of money is left in the meter, how much consumption you have done in the last hour, how much consumption you have done in the last day, how much consumption you have done in the last week, last month, all the last 12 months, last year. So all those trends and everything inside, if you can actually engage a customer from the sociology aspects, this is going to be very powerful. It's just like a mobile phone. You can have an iPhone with all of the sophistication inbuilt inside it. But if you're just making use of it just to make a phone call, you're not really using the power of that device, right? Now from the utility perspective, as I said in the smarting opening lines, it's very important how do we really engage the utility people to really see the power of the data, how to leverage, how to analyze, how to decode the data, how to bring in those insights for him to plan the load cost forecasting, how to plan where to put the infrastructure, charging infrastructure. All these things is possible from the data. So if you can really empower both the consumer as well as the utility people, we can really do amazing things. It's a revolutionary thing which is happening in the Indian industry in terms of replacing 250 million smart meters. It's a big responsibility. I think as a team, as collaborating with each other, as our ecosystem partners, we should be able to really bring in the best of the best to our Indian customers from all aspects. Thank you.
Thanks, Amit. I think, Viraj, this topic is very close to your heart and
Yeah.
you are eagerly waiting for your turn.
Yeah, it does. The smart metering in general is very close, very passionate about what. So, is India prepared? Is utilities prepared for this big digital transformation? What's happening? We are, I would say, over prepared on the paper. And the reason I say that is globally, if you see the rollouts, what's going on, is the generation one, I would categorize as a generation one, what the smart metering started was to automate the billing or that. And the generation two, they added a bit more features. Now what India and government has decided is that they just go include literally everything and anything out in the smart meters in the IS 16444 version, which has not happened anywhere in the world. Whether you're talking of doing a FOTA to prepaid to switching from prepaid to postpaid to your MDs, DSM, PLM, you look at open the RFPs and look for that. Literally, they have everything and anything that they can ask for the next 8 years or 10 years of planning. That's our RFPs. So we are extremely over prepared. We are very well thought, the RFPs, what's been written. Now, has these happened anywhere else in the world? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's a fact, actually. So whether it's the industry leaders like Itrons, the Landis & Gyres, the Secures and everything, it's a step-by-step process. So to answer the question, yes, are we prepared? We are extremely well. I mean, we have put a very good roadmap, as like Amit rightfully said, is there is a lot of responsibility for being the key people out in the industry leaders, and industry leaders who are sitting here have a lot of responsibility to be collaborative, to ensure that the vision what has been put forward goes out turns into a reality in a more effective way and in a very planned way on that. So it's, as rightfully said, it's more of a collaborative than an individual approach, which is yet to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have 5 minutes, 0 seconds. Yes. Is there any question from the floor? Right? Gentlemen. See if you can introduce yourself and. All right. Can you pass the mic? Just 2 mics, one that this side, one.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Ramakrishna. So post lunch, I think.
Can you take the mic?
Post lunch, I think most of us are not drowsy. Very good, healthy discussion around that point. Out of the word cloud that I could get was about the differential pricing. Then we talked about dynamic pricing. Then we talked about fetching of data in different intervals. So can the panel influence or suggest to the policymakers that can we have one nation, one grid, one price?
That's already.
And whether we think from Bharat Mala, Bharat Sagar, like that, you coin a name for this also.
Yeah, that's already there in the thought. Amit is going to take that
I
question.
think I can take that. That's a very interesting question, and it's a very interesting question, and we have to look at electricity still happens to be a concurrent subject, right? So a lot of things come to rest when it is considered as a concurrent subject, because it's when the policymakers come into place, it's the central policy makers who can think in those lines. The only thing is the dynamics, the demography, the geography, and the economics, everything varies as we move from north to south and east to west. So this is going to be a very difficult and tricky question for even the policymakers. But yeah, I think a lot of good things which has happened, like say the tariff policy, which was like in terms of like TOD tariff or the national policy on electricity. A lot of things are being harmonized. And to say like you have a standard say of saying maybe 20% additional payment you can make in terms of the peak loads. So you can standardize those things. You can't go beyond that, or maybe you can't charge below 10%. So some things can be centrally driven in terms of one nation, one pricing, but a lot of variability will be there as we move from region to region. And in a more dynamic, contestable market, today we are still having like a few utilities serving a different region. But once we have similar choices like mobiles and banking and telecom, things will change. So it would be a very healthy thing to see. I would be excited to see how it really crops up, but difficult to be really aligned on a holistic level. So I think it will be a mix of both.
Thanks, sir.
Sir, government is looking at privatization of the distribution utilities. So the concept of one pricing will not even be a thought process. They will look at it at this stage.
Right, sir. Sir?
So I have two questions.
First, introduce yourself and ask.
Yeah. So myself, Vasu, from representing Phytech. So we are OEMs for compute modules, which goes into DCU and all high computing devices, basically. So we have been supporting a lot of partners who are sitting there and then in this business. So I have two questions, since this session was more on the data, basically. So last year, November, I think we have been part of DUM utility event, basically, and I saw Amazon team, AWS team participating very actively, and I asked the same question. The data which is going into AWS servers, basically, and the AWS which is operating in India, so whether at what level of policy makers or the government is controlling the data. Yes, we would have a lot of NDAs and all those things, but
I think with the data privacy law in place in India, now things are quite structured. I would say it's very challenging to manipulate and misuse the data, and the sort of violation penalty that is already listed out, it's going to be very heavy.
Right.
So I think it will really be...
Right. One last question. Right.
Sir, to what he asked,
Right.
that, we have talked a lot about data, but
Data
nobody
security.
mentioned who owns this data. Is it the consumer, is it the MISP or the
Exactly.
and who will be responsible if it's misused?
Quite a
So
few policies in place.
the DISCOM owns the data, and I would also add to that there is a good framework, good structure, and proper audits. Data cannot be misused, and it's quite secure, and the ownership lies with the DISCOM. The guardians can be MISP.
so the second question was basically, when we see the smart metering as an industry, so we are standing on the consumer's money. So the common man money, basically. So whatever the business model as on today, end of the day, the common man is going to pay for that on a long run or a shorter run.
Very specific to your question.
What would be, say, the need, or what would take for the policymakers or the players in this metering segment to achieve the common man in the rural area without power cut?
Right.
Would it be a KPI? Could it be a KPI with a high priority for this industry?
I think if you look at one of the revolutionary things which has happened in the Indian legislature is the right to consumers bill, right? After Electricity Act in 2003, I believe the right to consumers bill is something which is very, very empowering. So that is the bill which has actually identified the consumer as someone who really deserves the sort of service that he should be offered. Similar services in telecom, banking, or et cetera, right? And that is where I believe that a lot of focus has been there to address that issue. So with this right to consumers bill, ensuring that the electricity supply is affordable, it's reliable, it has become a mandate, sort of. So you are going to be penalized if you're not offering that sort of service, and you're not catering to the quality that you need to cater to the end customers. So I think that really answers a lot of the right to consumers bills in terms of the effectiveness.
Right.
Just one point here. Sir, if I remember late 80s, when the first time one of the state governments announced free power to the agricultural pump sets, Can you imagine there was a major protest from farmers? Their contention was only one thing: take money, but give us reliable and quality power. You don't say that we are not charging you and give me a low voltage where the meters get burnt every day. People protested in front of utility offices, protested, came to the headquarters and also protested that take money but give us quality power, because on which is dependent my entire crop. You can't give me from early morning 2 o'clock to 2:15 or 2:30, the pump set will get on and this guy has to walk to switch on the pump set.
Right. That
So
says
people
all.
are ready to pay unless and until we charge to the dimension and we get out of this freebie culture on the power side. I think we can improve a lot of things can get improved.
I just want to add that, time's up. Yeah. I just want to add that, eventually what will happen that once you see more and more smart metering sets in and we see that the reliability will increase, I believe there will be a time when we'll have surplus power. There will be a time when we will not have any such cases wherein electricity cuts or outages are unplanned unless it is for preventive maintenance. And because there would be this situation, the tariffs would also go down. So I think that will solve.
Right. With that, we conclude. I think you have plenty of time to meet all the speakers, today, tomorrow. Yeah, stage is yours.